morning, Trailridge students! For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mrs. Banders, and you can usually find me at the junior school teaching with Miss Solomon in the full day 3 class. Or for those of you at main school, you might know me as Violet and Leo's mom. I'm really excited to talk to you about science. Today we are going to be exploring a chemical reaction, and we're going to be looking at the difference between chemical changes and physical changes. So I'm going to read to you about what chemical changes are. So anytime a new substance is made, a chemical change takes place. Usually 2 or more materials are combined and a new substance is formed. A chemical change can produce amazing explosions like fireworks. Some chemical changes are a little bit more difficult to spot, like when a nail rusts. If you notice bubbles being formed or a change in color or temperature, there is a good chance a chemical change has taken place, but not always. Scientists can determine if a chemical change has occurred by asking this question: was the substance that was formed present before the reaction? If the answer is no, then it is a chemical change. Since chemical changes make new substances, they're usually very difficult to be undone. For example, when you burn wood, you can't really take the gases from the burning wood and make them back into a log very easily. Next, we are going to talk about physical changes. So physical changes do not make a new substance. Physical changes come in many forms. It can be a change in the shape or an appearance of an object, like crumpling a piece of paper or cutting, bending, or dissolving something. Since objects do not become a different substance during a physical change, it is usually easy to reverse the change. For example, if you dissolve sugar in water, you can easily reverse the change by evaporating the water from the solution. So evaporation means you're going to take the water and you're going to heat it up, and when you heat it up, the water turns into a gas. And so when the water is turned into gas, what's left into the container is sugar crystals. And then here's a picture of eggs being beaten. So it looks different, but it hasn't changed what the materials are. It's still an egg. It's just a foamy egg. Another thing with physical changes is that they can occur when a matter changes state. So there are 3 common states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. When a substance changes state from a liquid to a gas, for example, it is undergoing a physical change. So as I was talking about the water before, we're going to use the same idea. So when you boil water, it's going from a liquid, and the steam you see coming out of the pot or kettle is a gas, and that is water gas. The other way so water is also a great example for a solid change. So when you take water and you freeze it, it turns into an ice cube. So it's turning from a liquid into a solid. So chemical and physical changes take place all around you. So here's another example. So when you're making cereal for breakfast, combining the milk and cereal together is a physical change because you're just making the cereal wet with the milk. But if you took the cereal out of the milk and let it dry, it would still be the same. It would just be maybe slightly bigger. When you eat the cereal, a chemical change happens during digestion. So when you eat the cereal, it goes into your stomach and all the acids break it down. They break it down into their components like energy for you and nutrients. And so that is new substances, and that is a chemical change. So I have a few examples of a physical and chemical change. So here is a picture of a banana being chopped. So cutting a banana only changes its appearance. So instead of being a big banana, it's cut into little pieces. It doesn't make a new substance. So it is an example of a physical change. The next picture, you're going to have a hard time telling what it is, but it has been a gummy worm that has been added into a test tube with an oxidizing agent. And so fire has formed, and it is burning the gummy worm into different chemicals. So when the gummy candy was placed in a test tube with the oxidizer, the gummy candy burned up and created new chemicals. Since new chemicals were formed, it is an example of a chemical change. So another part about experiments are thinking about the scientific process. So first thing about thinking about an experiment is you ask a question. So you think about what you want to learn or test. So today I want to learn about what happens when you combine vinegar, or it's also called acetic acid, and you combine it with baking soda or sodium bicarbonate. So vinegar is an acid, but we also use it for cleaning, or we can also use it to put on our French fries. So that is what vinegar is. And the next one, is baking soda. So baking soda, you can use it for cleaning, you can use it for baking. It's great to help make cakes rise when it's combined with an acid. And it can also be put in your fridge to help absorb any of the smells that are in your fridge. So my question is, what happens when you combine vinegar and baking soda together? The next part about doing an experiment is after you think of your question, you have to do some research about what's going to happen. So you gather information about what you want to learn. So I've gone to school for science, and so I kind of know what's going to happen, so I didn't have to do any research, but if you'd like to do some research on it, that would be wonderful. So after you've done some research, you can make a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is where you try and predict what is going to happen in your experiment. So it's basically an educated guess. So then the next part is designing an experiment to test your hypothesis and see if it's correct. So we are going to add vinegar and baking soda into a flask, and I'm going to put a balloon on top, and we're going to see what happens. The next part of a science experiment is recording your data. So you're going to record what happens during the test or experiment. So it also can be called an observation. And finally, once you've done your experiment and recorded your data, you analyze or review your data to see if your hypothesis is correct. And that is called a conclusion. So for CASA, lower CASA, and some of the 3s and 4s, I have designed a sheet for you to do. It'll be on your teacher's Google Classroom. So I've written down the question. So the question says, what happens when we combine vinegar and baking soda? And the next is I'm asking you to please draw what happened to the balloon during the experiment. And then there's a little flask. For some of the older children, I've made a Google form that you can fill out, and it'll be on your Google Classroom as well. And if you don't want to fill out the Google form, that's okay. You can also draw your observation, and you can send it into whatever teacher you have. Okay, so for the experiment, we are going to take the vinegar or acetic acid, and we are going to fill up the flask a quarter of the way. So this is what a flask is called. So it's kind of got a big bottom and it goes up to a skinnier top. It makes it easy for when you get further up in science to mix. Next, we are going to take our balloon and put a funnel in the top of the balloon. And we're going to take baking soda, about a tablespoon, and put it into the funnel, and it's going to go into the balloon. See? Already in. Next, we are going to take the balloon off the funnel, and we're going to put it on top of the flask. So, Now the balloon is on the flask and it's sitting off to the side. And in here is the baking soda. So I'm going to take the balloon and I'm going to tip it upside down into the flask. And we're going to see what happens. And I hope you get a really good picture. So I'm going to move it back so that you can see what's going to happen. Ready? We're going to tip it in. Whoa. Do you notice all the bubbles and the fizzing? And then also what's happening to the balloon? So these would be your observations. So you'd observe that there's some bubbles and some fizzing in the flask and that the balloon blew up. All right, so that usually happens because when you combine the vinegar and the baking soda together, it produces something called carbon dioxide, which is a gas, and so it has filled up the balloon. Oh, there's a little bit more in there. Let's see if we can get another reaction. Nope. All right. So for that, we'll write down the observations, and then you can write the conclusion about what you think happened to the balloon, although I may have told you the answer. All right, I'm going to move that out of the way. And we are going to talk about what we're going to do tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to give you a hint about what we're going to be talking about. So for the CASA classroom, we were supposed to be talking about space and the solar system, which we will still be doing. So here are some interesting facts about what I might be talking about tomorrow. So the tallest known mountain in our solar system is a volcano on Mars. Olympus Mons is 26 kilometers high, about 3 times taller than Mount Everest. Olympus Mons is about as wide as the U.S. state of Arizona. And the entire chain of the Hawaiian Islands could fit inside Olympus Mons. So it's really, really big volcano that's on Mars. So I'm really happy to have done this experiment with you. I would invite you to fill out your Google form and to print out the experiment sheet if you'd like, and to draw a picture of what you were going to do, of your observations. And I look forward to seeing them, and I am going to see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.